Hey everyone, this is Dusk, AestheticGamer, and I'm currently playing Blank Slate, which is the first game I released onto the internet, because I wanted to talk about something. I literally just played the game right before this called Mind's Eye, and there was a few things I wanted to talk about in relation to that game. It was somebody's first game that they released. It wasn't terrible. In fact, as a first game, there's some things which I think are a bit impressive, and this is something which I kind of want to make as a highlighted point. And I'm not even saying it's the first game they ever worked on, just the first game they ever released to the public, which is a different thing. And this is not the first game I ever worked on, ever. I started doing some game stuff when I was 10 years old, then I stopped for several years, just because I thought that there was a few reasons for that. It's a long, complicated story. Just know I didn't for a while until I eventually went back to it. This would be the first game released to the public. It was made for Ludum Dare. I forget the number, but I think it was Ludum Dare 24, which was in April of 2013. 2013, I released two games, which was Blank Slate and the original version of Girls' Graveyard, Girls' Graveyard was done in October, Blank Slate was done in April. For Blank Slate, was made in like 32 to 36 hours. I think I say the time at the very end. I'm highlighting some stuff, though, because I don't think games, when people first make them, will ever be your best game. I can't think of anybody whose first game ends up being their best game, and there's a number of reasons for this. With this said, though, I just kind of want to highlight some of the issues of Blank Slate. I also will mention this was the first game I did any sort of my own sprite work for. It's going to look pretty bad when I get to that. I'm still not great at sprite work, but I think I've improved at least a little bit. It's also the first game, or anything, it's the first anything I ever did any music for. Because Ludum Dare requires you to make your own stuff from scratch, so I just made my own music, and the music in this one isn't particularly great. I think I've improved a lot since then as well. But I want to highlight some things, because there is some definite gameplay flaws here. Now, something which I also find interesting about first games, though, even if they're flawed, in which they usually are, like the last game I just played, which was Mind's Eye, was incredibly flawed. However, my personal opinion, me expressing from me to you, is that there is trajectory. I can see potential trajectory of making that better. Because oftentimes, something which a lot of people can express in the first game that they release, you can sort of get an idea of what it is that they want to create. Now, oftentimes, first games are limited from lack of experience, sometimes experimentation, and oftentimes design flaws because they don't really have a good handle yet on, I guess, good design from the maker standpoint. Often, some which I can talk about, you can theoretically know good design in video games. However, I think knowing it from playing them and then actually making the game and trying to make it have good design are completely different things. At this point in time, I still feel like I'm a bit better at now analyzing other games than I am like in the creator's seat creating some things, but that's a whole other topic for a whole other time. Now we're just going to get right into Blank Slate. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Now, if you've not seen Blank Slate before, or not played any of my other games or are aware of any of them, they would be Close Your Eyes, Red Haze, Close Me, Cutie Patootie, and there's some other things which I'll be releasing soon, then know that you'll see some footwork and some early groundwork for some things which I do in this, but yeah. Please, help. So to clarify, something which I should mention. Wow, I just realized the colors are really weird for you guys. Holy hell, let me... Okay, what? I think I know what happened, actually. Yeah, okay, I figured it out. Okay. That was weird. Have enough games not been released to avoid bad game design completely? Oh, trust me. Okay, so game design is harder than just this is good, this is bad. It's kind of like... How do I express this? Is there enough movies out there to not make a bad movie? Is kind of like the equivalent of what that question is. And the answer to that is, for starters, not everyone's seen every movie in existence. And second of all, making a movie and watching a movie are completely different things. Now then. I was about to go, did you make the game get a recolor? Yeah. So let's just observe some things. A toilet plunger. The toilet is filthy. She never cleaned it. Now, obviously, you can tell we're very small to the rest of the world. I should mention something. The theme of Ludum Dare 24. Ludum Dare, if you don't know, is a game development competition that lasts for 48 hours. There's a theme that's selected. The theme of Ludum Dare 24 was minimalism. So, the drain is plugged up. Alright. Something is cooking in the stove. Very little food. The couch, my resting place. No cable. I mean, there's a cable plugged in right there, but we're not going to bother that right now. Also, I cannot run yet. I'm about to gain the ability to. The entrance, my exit. I leave out through here. Am I ready? I'm not, but except I am. I'm outside the white zone. You can now dash by pressing shift. So that has a great running animation. Now, I had purposely made it so you can run over the house because it's kind of like a picture, which is something about the white zone. But I digress. Let's not pay attention to that right now. There's nothing written on the back side of the sign. A sign. Cloudy to the south, access to the north, loss of will to the west, the epilogue to the east. Which now, this game has no clarification about this, but you're supposed to press the action button on these and you can save your game. Voila, magic. It needs a key. Which then there are two ways to get the key. There's a left path and a bottom path. I'm going to take the bottom path first, then do the left path just because I can do both of them quickly. You only need to do one of them though. And these are pretty simple, you just kind of do this. It's not, honestly speaking, it's not very engaging. I guess it was just a thought which occurred when I was working on this. It's like, well, what should I do for this sequence? Oh, I could do something like this. I'm gonna go this way. Loop-de-dee-loop-de-dee-loop-de-dee-loop. I can see the path right in front of me right now. If you stay too long on the platform, you die. You also might notice when I get close to the key, the audio of this music note gets louder. This is actually supposed to be a clue for something later in the game, which is going to happen very shortly. But unfortunately, if I had to speak in retrospective, the clue is way too subtle. Most people probably don't even really specifically notice that this is what's making the sound. There's no obvious sign except that it gets louder when you get closer to it. But the thing is, it only sporadically happens. It's not a constant noise even, so it's not obvious this is what's making the sound. It's obvious if you pick it up when it's making the sound. But most people, because the sound plays like 1/4 of the time, it can be very easy to miss that little detail. Now then, let's just ride on back. Now, for these sequences, when I touch them, I don't have to click anything. It's like those Pokemon slime puzzles, where you touch a thing and it lets you run on across. I wasn't thinking of Pokemon when I made it, but a lot of people made the comparison, so it's been ingrained in my head here. So anyways, you hit these, you go in a lot of different directions. The other way they got the, what was called the Quaver key, is to figure out which ways to go in these sequences. At the moment, I don't remember the exact solution to this. I'm just going to kind of try to do some different things and see what happens. Apparently this way went this whole long, drastic direction. Okay, so this will hit me over there pretty obviously. What we got here then? Alrighty. How about... I'm going to try this and see what happens. This is going to lead me all over the place, apparently. It led me back to the middle, which means... Yep, okay, led me back here. Let's go this way, and I'm going to try this one. I don't actually remember the... Okay, so this is I think there was two solutions to this one, but this was probably the easier of the two. So pretty simple. This also would have led you to the Quaver key. You could have chosen one. I just did both for demonstration. To be honest, I mean, neither are... If I had to talk, neither are particularly great. They're both kind of just there. I mean, they both kind of have a thematic with the music. I mean, neither of them really have any sort of thematic to do with the music key in the first place, so why is it even a music key? That's the question. There's some other things about this which I don't really think tie or connect well. They just kind of seem like they're there for no other particular purpose. I mean, they're in the environment physically, and you don't really have a feel for the environment, so maybe the environment's just like this, but still, I don't think it's the most fitting thing. Open this, you unlock the door, and now for one of the... There's a few bigger flaws coming here really shortly. Okay. So this is going to be a little bit repetitive, so... I'm going to go this way, things get dark, and someone's going to start humming at us. Spoiler alert, the one humming is me. So this sequence goes on for a little bit too long. I had this bad thing when I started designing games that I make really elongated sequences. If you look to the right, there's a moment where a thing slightly will pop out of the screen, right then it just happened, and then disappear. Anyways, though, which leads us to this frame sequence, where we start getting chased by whatever that is. Alright, and then we end up here. Now, I'm actually going to do this wrong before I do it right. So earlier I mentioned that the Quaver key played a melody, and it was supposed to be a clue for this. Now, this was kind of the part where it's supposed to play a part, but I did this kind of badly, honestly. The closer you are to the right way, the louder the sound gets. I remember which one's the right way to go, but I'm going to start off with the wrong way. just to kind of give some demonstration. So when you go the wrong way, which... it's a jump scare, and I fucking hate that I did that. But hey, need to show for demonstration. Okay, so when you go the wrong way, that happens. And you saw there was a lot of different pathways related to that. Anyways, we're going to continue running on over here, doing the old thing. Now also, another thing to note is that you go through 2 gameplay sequences the player could easily die at. And the checkpoint was well the way fucking back here. And maybe the player didn't even save after they got the key. They could have completely forgotten about it. There was the fact there was no obvious sign that that's even a fucking save point. There's a few pretty big design flaws in this particular sequence I can highlight at the moment, so yeah. Now then, I know which way is the right way. So this part becomes needlessly frustrating for a few reasons. Now the one that's the correct pathway, I believe, is this one, so... The clue is that the noise gets louder, but, you know, the players maybe didn't even pick up on that fact when it first happened, so not very good. Also, because this is using a screen tint to make it look darker than it actually is, so that's why this is black and white instead of green as it is. I didn't really figure out a line system yet, so this is kind of just a superficial way to do it. Noise gets louder, which leads us to go up here. Now the timer, of course, is going on the screen, kind of like the things we saw earlier, but the screen's flashing out. Got a little bit red. Okay, that's where I was. I got outside myself for a second. I can't interact with anything. I can't go past this direction either. There's a little more red going on. And here we are here. Some stuff from this sequence were reused in Close Your Eyes a bit, or Girl's Graveyard, excuse me. But yeah. This is reference Red Haze as well. Yeah. Humans are selfish. Humans are greedy. I eat fish. Humans eat my fish. Humans have plenty, but they may take more. Humans eat my fish. I eat humans. But one human not eat my fish. But I ate him. Regret. Sad. Pay dues to human who not eat my fish. Now, you might have noticed something, and I'm going to say this right now. If you give this fish, or not this fish, if you give this bird thing the wrong thing, he's going to eat you. There's this hastily drawn picture of him eating you. I can't draw, so it's just scribbles, honestly. Now, you might have noticed there wasn't a save point except before the who-I-ow scene. So, with that, though, is that you'd have to go through that sequence again, which, of course, would detract from the moment. And so why would... There's some bad checkpoint going on here. Now, I'm just going to do the right thing and do this stuff. A small pond of water that lays absolutely still. A body rests at the bottom. Take the rose petal, leave it. You also can't switch petals once you've chosen one, which I think is a bad idea. A giant fish skeleton. A giant fishing hook is blocking the path. So I'm going to read these for a second. Crimson shone across her bone as her lover shoved her. Her cheating sways in many ways is probably why he drugged her. The sun shined in under his skin, his innards lay enlightened. Bright he thought, only himself right, he was slayed, lonely and afraid. By just a look, you'd probably mistook the man as jolly and hearty, but look astray, and he'd be gobbling away, consuming all in all. So this is kind of a reference point to a puzzle I did a little bit later, but we're not going to talk too deeply about it. It struck her now as she drifted down that her fate had never taken her kindly, but she still wept, and the current swept as she couldn't believe he fooled her. On winter nights she stowed away, on others' blinds they were her prey, but by one misstep she slipped and slept, and by morning they only found her body. So the correct flower is the blue one. You're supposed to find the one that doesn't have any sort of sinful thing going on. Take the blue bell petal. Yep, obtain that. Now you can't pick up another one. Yep. And you give it to this guy. You bring me petal from dead human. This is her flower. She did not eat my fish. I go now, eat more greedy humans. He's also still there, but ignore that. He just ate greedy humans, so... Which leads us to this little area. We can save here again, which I'm going to do. Most of the doors are locked, and I could actually go to the end of the game right now. It's in here. But not yet. Instead, I'm going to go this way. Can't observe the plants or anything, so... Issue with the puzzle is that the bird says he the first time, doesn't it? You're correct. Now then, we're going to go over here and go into the ice room, which is a completely useless room, but there's just some stuff you can do in here, which is kind of fun, I guess. The wall here is smeared with strange gray substance. Now going down here, not much to see, not much to see. There are traces of a body that once lay here. The trail of the strange gray substance leads here to this ice machine. Outside of the ice machine, nothing looks out of the ordinary. Everything seems perfectly okay. And we're going to do some stuff. If you played Red Haze, some of the stuff about this particular last room might seem a little familiar. Don't know why, though. It's a mystery. Not going to let it do its thing, though. Now, I can leave. In fact, I'm going to get ready to leave, because I just did. Things are a little bit darker after you do that. Which now, a little bit of a breeze coming from in here. It almost looks like a giant pool of black paint, but it surprisingly appears to be a giant hole. Leap in, back out, and I'm going to leap in. Which leads us to this little area, which is going to be familiar to some people. We'll talk about that another time. Are you ready to hear my tale? I am not. Running only prolongs it. Are you ready to hear my tale? Ready. Pay close attention to what I heed. Memory is key. Alrighty? Goodwill is a delusion. Those who do good for others do it for the goodness of themselves. Love is but a fleeting desire to give yourself and to take for yourself. The partner is but a catalysm of expression, durability, desire, and pleasure to affirm one's own loneliness and thus existence. Humor is just a reaction to the unfamiliar. Comedy is a cruel act against difference and to play down the uncomfortable. Innocence is nothing more than ignorance. Acting true to oneself is usually an act in itself. Those who are good-willed simply are suppressing their desires. Family is nature. In truth, most families don't even like each other. The greatest joy is found in the darkest deeds. Memory is key. Humor is... It was a puzzle. Was this Ibrahim and Nikki inspired? Actually, neither. But yeah. Humor is reaction. Family is nature. Acting true to yourself is an act. Expressing one's desire. In fact, I'm going to guess this one wrong. Now, what the answer is here, expressing one's desire, I think it's supposed to be deceitful or suppression. No, not suppression, it's good. Okay, I'm going to say honorable because I know it's wrong. He, ha ha ha, which leads to this. I just want to do that because I can get back easily. Now then. Continue from there. Passion. Oh my. Go down here. Jumping down. It's a little bit brighter because we didn't do the thing this time. Are you ready to hear my tale? Right. Pay close attention to what I heed. Memory is key. Goodwill is illusion. Love is a fleeting desire. Humor is reaction. Innocence is nothing more than ignorance. Acting true to oneself is usually an act in itself. Those who are goodwill simply are suppressing their desires. Family is nature. Greatest joy in the darkest deeds. Memory is key. Humor is reaction. Family is nature. Acting true to yourself is an act. Expresses one desire is... Jeez, I actually forget. This is the last one. I should have paid more attention. So suppressing one desire is deceitful. I'm going to try that one. No, I'm wrong. I'm going to do something. I actually kind of prefer it when it's darker. So I'm going to go inside here. Get me out of here. I just like it when it's a little bit darker. Let's hop on in. Now there's a few issues I'm having. I'm going to talk a lot about this at the end, just so you guys have the full context. Goodwill delusions, love is fleeting desire, humor is just reaction, it's nothing more than ignorance, acting true to oneself is usually acting itself, those who are goodwill simply are suppressing their desires. Right, I did this one backwards, it's goodwill. Alright, humor is reaction, family is nature, acting true to yourself is an act, expresses one desire is goodwill. What drives you? Why do you move forward? What is your true nature? Let's change this into that. I'm not going to comment too much about that though. Go on back for the moment. And see this here. Caught in a web. Now going on down. Nothing much to see here. Scrambled. Which then leads to this. Your arm. but simply I touch. Thank you, Mom. A game by Ryan Sandrock, AestheticGamer. All art, music, and sound effects and games makings were done in 34 hours from the day 26. It was 26, not 24. Theme was minimalism. Okay, so let's talk somewhat about this before I continue and close this off. What they call passion is just a turmoil, cosmic repression of their ambitions. My. Ooh, here's what you're talking about there. The rogue? You like the Gyago grin, didn't you? What is Gyasgro grin? I don't actually know what that is. Good album, in my honest opinion. I'll trust. Now, okay. So, there are some definite flaws about this game. Some of them I touched into, and there's more I can even say. Now, in some fairness, this was a game that was only made in 34, 36 hours for a Ludum Dare competition for less than 48 hours. So on that front, you know, there's not too much time in that time frame, especially for a first public project to polish it out. But there's definitely some things and some big flaws with it, which I would definitely change if I was going to try and make the same sort of game. Now, as I said, I do want to reimagine this game at some point in time. I already have an idea for the reimagining, so... See, I don't know what it is, but yes, but I'm not going to talk too much about the smile stuff going on for the very second. Goodbye, man. Joker from the Dark. I'll trust. I actually don't know the term for that, but I will trust you guys as you go with that. No, then. With the context, there's some issues with the pacing, with the puzzles. I'd even say with the story, and frankly speaking, it's okay that it's flawed, though. And this is what I was going to also say for the other game. Everybody has to start somewhere, and very, very often, the first project by somebody's honestly probably not going to be good. Now, it might turn out being good. It'll probably not be their best effort. I'm not trying to say that it will be bad, because that's not true. Some people's first projects can be surprisingly good. But most times, the first thing that you make and the first thing you release to the public is not going to be your best work, partially because you haven't really, A, received feedback, and B, you're still practicing, you're still learning stuff, and you're getting a feel for things. It's another big part of it as well. It's multi-layered also. It also could also be like you're younger at that point in time and not as experienced with things in life or things to think about. Maybe you have less experience with games, or not even just games, just everything, I guess. And you haven't learned some things about game design, whatever engine that you're using. There's a number of factors into this. First projects are often interesting because there's some groundwork, laywork for what might come later, but it's still kind of like an infant stage thing. It's not, I'm not even going to say it's simpler, just it's oftentimes more flawed, and it's through those flaws that you can sort of learn, I guess. And that's fine. Honestly, that's fine. So this mom took his arm so he would stop doing the thing he's not supposed to do, right? Good. Well, as she kept on saying, adequate. Now then. Good boy, man. Don't follow that. That's also why, when I was talking about Mind's Eye, which, again, I played this right before this, I'll try, if I upload this to YouTube, which I'm not really sure if I will or won't. But if I do, I'll try uploading after I've uploaded the Mind's Eye video, so you can see that for reference to know what I'm even really talking about here. With Mind's Eye, I'm not upset that it's like that. In fact, I don't even really regret playing it, because sometimes it's actually good to play things which aren't even specifically great. And then when I think there's Samuel. It's sometimes good to play things that aren't good, because then you can learn from them. In fact, sometimes it's more worthwhile to play bad games than it is to play good games. I'm not even saying the last game was... I don't want to say that Mind's Eye is a bad game. It's not like a completely terrible game. There's some things about it which I kind of liked, I guess. But I also understand that's an early attempt, and it had a lot of issues. In the end, I wouldn't really say it's good. Finally, that was way too much work. Yeah. But when it came to Mind's Eye, I can appreciate the effort put in. There's some things which I bet was quite a challenge for them, especially if this was like the first game they made, but maybe it wasn't the first game they made, but just the first they released. I do believe that, but Mind's Eye is frustrating me. It's a frustrating game on a few accounts. I didn't like it too much, but I maybe want to talk about first games. Good evening. Yeah. So on this front, when it comes to a first game, frankly, sometimes it's you can kind of hope that your first game doesn't really catch on almost, because then maybe people won't see like maybe the worst you'll ever release. I'm not even gonna say it's gonna be the worst you ever release, but the roughest maybe you'll ever release. That might be the most appropriate way to say it. And Mind's Eye was incredibly rough, and there was a lot of parts that were frustrating. There was a lot of parts where I thought how they could have done it better. There was a lot of things, but at the exact same time, I could see some of the love and effort they were putting into it. When I was playing it, I didn't feel like they were dispassionate about what they were making. There were things I could tell probably took a lot of work, especially to figure out. Like the pathfinding on the monkey's uncle, wasn't that bad. He worked fine, honestly. His pathfinding, like he got a little bit stuck at doors, but I'm a little bit impressed they got working as well as he did for like a little clustered in maze thing. He figured out a few other things, which I'm sure took some time to figure out and execute correctly. So there's some competence in there. And also, along with the competence, there are some nice little touches. I'm not trying to say all moments of the game were bad. There were a few which I were like, oh, that's kind of clever. However, though, unfortunately, it's overshadowed by the fact that I think literally every gameplay moment had, like, a flaw. There was at least one flaw I could think for any individual scene. And maybe that's a little bit objective, or not objective, that's a little bit subjective, but I do feel like just from a forefront, when I talk about game design, I don't think like, oh, if you do this, that's automatically bad. I normally try to think of it in terms of what comes together. Like, how does it all come together? I can't really judge Blank Slate on how it comes together because I haven't, I made it. I can't give it a fair assessment. This said, though, I think that oftentimes horror is kind of important of how it comes together in the end, and people are able to overlook flaws if enough comes together to be engaging enough for the individual. Now, this all said, unfortunately, things did not come together too well in Mind's Eye, and I think that, yeah, Jump Quest, yeah, I got to the end there. I don't think things came together well enough in Mind's Eye. I don't know if Blank Slate came together better or worse, don't know. I'd have to ask other people who played it blindly, but I digress. But for Mind's Eye, it definitely did not come together well enough to the point where it felt more hampering, I guess, based on the sort of limitations that were presented and oftentimes the flaws that were present. So then it just didn't become a very engaging experience in the end. It just became this sort of more frustrating experience than anything engaging. And frankly, the best aspects of Mind's Eye weren't specifically anything great, so the frustration didn't really feel worthwhile. But I still don't regret playing it, because there were some things that remind me of. Sometimes playing bad games can give you a little bit of insight of how things could have been done better. If you have frustration as a player, then yeah. And frankly speaking, sometimes the first game isn't specifically even for the player, if that makes any sense. Now, games are a shared medium. I'm now thinking about Beginner's Guide. If you have not played the Beginner's Guide, it's a game made by the same person who created Stanley Parable, and it's a game that's all about game design and how people make games. This is spoiling a little bit of the experience, but not too much, so don't need to worry too much if you ever play a player, if haven't seen it or anything, or not spoiled at this point in time. But the essential idea is how people create games for different reasons, and there's a developer inside the Beginner's Guide which makes games basically simply for themselves. They make games they don't ever plan to release to anyone else. It's kind of just like a self-hobby thing, at least for them. And somebody else can't understand that. But talking about that into a bigger forefront there, when you make games, there's sort of a process where you're both making it for yourself but making it for others. When I make games that I personally want to exist. So it is somewhat of a selfish thing. And this is really kind of, I guess, the art of any sort of creation, but I'm right now talking specifically about games. When you make any sort of thing, you probably both want to make something that you personally want to make, but you also want to make something which is enjoyable by the masses, or even not just the masses, but by some audience. Because you're sharing your work. You're selling it. You want it to do well enough. You want people to enjoy it. You want people to get something out of it. But of course, when it comes to a first project, I think this is actually a big part of it. When you create your first project, before like your first project released to the public, you don't really have a feel for that audience yet. And I know I didn't, and I think this is true for most people. You don't really have any sort of feel for any sort of audience because you don't really know who your audience is. Like, you might kind of know, but you also don't. You don't know who's going to play your game. You don't have any experience with having somebody play something that you've made. So, not having that experience, it's kind of hard to think about. I guess even if you're a gamer yourself, it's kind of hard to think about the general player perspective, or to think about, I guess, just the thought of having people in mass or something play your game. You don't have the feedback. You're not really trained to think that way. And so oftentimes your first project is more often more for you. I mean, you hope that people will enjoy it. You hope that you made something good that they can consume and enjoy. But at the exact same time, you don't really have the feeling for what the audience wants. Or even sometimes, and this is probably actually pretty true, you don't even really have a feel for exactly what you want. You might kind of know. It's kind of like there. But it's this big, ambiguous thing. You've never really tackled anything like this before. And you've seen other games, you've played other games, and you've seen other things that aren't games, and other things that might have inspired you in your life. And it is kind of just this sort of ambiguous mass of how it inspires you. You don't really know quite how to bring it together. You might have some ideas, and some of it might come together, but you aren't used to this process yet, so you're still sort of waiting. I guess waiting in the wire instead of diving deeper into it. So then when you try to bring things together, it might come out more of a mess, both because you don't know how to bring things together yet, you're rough and you're not really used to this sort of process, but also it's hard to really see from the audience perspective. When you get really deep in designing something, you can kind of forget how audiences might perceive something. Like maybe a sequence that you think is easy ends up being really hard, for example, for other people. Or maybe there's something which works by your specific train of logic, but it only works for your train of logic. It doesn't really work for a more general sense of logic, so then people that don't think like you are going to have difficulty with it. There's various examples of this, but I think it's a mixture between not having that sense of audience presence, and that's kind of a weird way to word it. It's not exactly what I mean when I word it like that, but I think it's close enough. And that sort of ambiguity which comes with sort of designing something from these loose ideas that you want to bring together, which ends up making the first projects end up being so rough. Lack of experience as well, and also figuring out engines. The last thing is figuring stuff out itself, like the technical side of it, but I digress. Anyways, that's that. Hopefully that ranting was at least a little bit interesting. Until next time, adieu to all of you.